History matters, and if you think otherwise, you're not welcome here. Okay, so today we have a video from the channel called History Matters, and the video is called Why Did Russia Sell Alaska to America? As always, the link to the original video is in the description below. Give them a view and a like. If you're American or Russian, or if you know a lot about this topic, I would like you to correct me or add something interesting if you have to this topic. And I think this topic is very interesting because Alaska is the biggest U.S. state in landmass. Although a lot of people think that Texas is the biggest one, but no, it's not. Okay, let's jump into the video and see what they have for us.
In late 1867, Alaska was transferred from the ownership and dominion of the Russian Empire to the United States of America. It was sold for the princely sum of $7.2 million, and for most it's just a footnote in history. A question that should be asked is,
Really?
why did Russia decide to sell its overseas colony? Furthermore, why did it sell it to the United States and why not, say, Britain or some other colonial power? So the prime...
Is it just really a footnote, Americans? Let me know. Because as far as I know, the U.S., the two main ways that the U.S. expanded this territory is either buying land from other, like countries, or via, like war on the indigenous people. And maybe the famous purchase is the Louisiana Purchase. But Alaska, I mean, it's a big, vast territory. So is it really just a meh in your history books? Let me know.
Why did it sell it to the United States and why not, say, Britain or some other colonial power? So the primary reason for the sale of Alaska was Russia's defeat in the Crimean War. The war had done several things. The first was that it had largely bankrupted Russia, which was struggling to repay the debts it had racked up in order to fight the war. The second was that the victories of the Royal Navy over the modernising Russian Navy had made it clear that Russia had a long way to go before it could challenge Britain at sea. As such, it was realised by the Russian leadership that should another war break out, there was little to stop Britain from simply conquering the territory via Canada. So what type of territory was Alaska?
Yeah, and if you think about it, to supply an army to the east in Russia is very complicated back then because like the main armies and everything is in the European part of the Russian Empire. So you need to transfer the troops all over here to Kamchatka, and then you need to cross here. But the naval, the British naval force would probably block this part, and then this territory is practically undefended. And the Crimean War is a whole nother topic about the Holy Land and access to the Mediterranean and the Ottoman Empire, the decline of the Ottoman Empire, so I'm not going to go into it.
Little to stop Britain from simply conquering the territory via Canada.
Yeah.
So what type of territory was Alaska? For a start, it wasn't called Alaska at the time, but simply Russian America. Yeah. And for the Russian Empire, it provided several things. First of all was the prestige that came with owning an overseas territory. As for its economic benefits, Alaska was a much more mixed bag, which combined with the cost to protect it, you can see why the sale was seen as necessary. Incidentally, the sale of Russian America was broached by Emperor Alexander II's brother, the Grand Duke Constantine, who wanted to strengthen and liberalise the empire in the wake of the defeat in the Crimean War. It didn't take much to convince the emperor to agree to the sale, but now the question was, to whom?
Money, Britain... Yeah. Economically back then, we all know that there's a lot of oil in Alaska. And that's maybe the main, as far as I know, the main income source in Alaska and the most economically beneficial right now. But it was discovered, like in the 1960s. And Alaska, an interesting thing, is a state from the 1950s, I think. Back then, before that, it was just a U.S. territory. But yeah, at the end of the 19th century, the only thing that the Russians gained from Russian America or Alaska is the trade with fur. But it wasn't that profitable because the Russians, without any planning, extinct all the animals that they get fur from. So it wasn't that economically viable.
Was an obvious contender given that its North American lands were already attached to Russian America and they already had the right to navigate its waters and trade with the colony. So why didn't they sell to Britain? Well, Russia and Britain were imperial rivals, and to give Britain a large coastline so close to Russia was potentially dangerous. Also, Britain wasn't interested, since Canada is already huge and Britain had enough access to the Pacific Ocean. Thus, the United States of America was really the only likely candidate for the purchase. Russia had approached the US in the early 1860s concerning the purchase, but they were undergoing this little-known event called the American Civil War, and so were a bit busy. After the war was settled and the US had to deal with the issues of Reconstruction, the purchase of Alaska was seen as a useful distraction. The Russian Empire was also keen to keep up the ongoing good relations with the Americans, because as an ally they would be useful. It was agreed in March 1867 between the governments of the US and Russia that Alaska would be bought, but how did they come up with the price?
And America back then, it wasn't a world power, like they were economically climbing, like overtaking different countries in economic power and so on. But regarding the military and overall economic power, it wasn't that great. So it didn't pose a big threat to the Russians back then. And because the US wasn't that involved in international affairs, they were thinking, yeah, why not? We can just buy an alliance practically. So I think it's pretty, from a practical and tactical and strategical point of view, I think that the Russians decided very good back then, because it wasn't economically viable, it was undefendable, and why just not get an emerging superpower on your side? Why not?
Well, Russia had sent a team of surveyors to look for things like natural resources and to see how good life in Alaska was.
And it was determined
that Alaska was worth about $10 million. However, the surveyors argued that Alaska shouldn't be sold at all and that the governance of it simply be reformed. The emperor ignored this and both sides negotiated until the sum of $7.2 million was agreed. In October 1867, it was transferred to America, and Russia's attention would thereafter be focused to the south and to the west. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with extra thanks to my patrons that you see on screen now. And a special...
Okay, great video, short video. Is always hard to react to those small, small videos. And especially when the narrator talks so fast and puts out a lot of things at once. But I think that the Russians, for that time period where he's talking about, did a pretty good deal. But I'm interested in, how much is 7.2 million worth today in today's dollars? If you have any website where that thing can be calculated, please put it down in the comment section, because I'm really interested. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed it. Once again, the original link to the original video is in the description below. The Discord server is in the description below. Patreon, everything you need to know. If you want to be part of this community, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And until the next time, see ya.